Well, it's so good to be back. And this is Cynthia speaking here. And I've got Valencia and Kim with me again. And it's so great to
Hello.
be back again.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And our topic today, we're going to discuss this ongoing transformation and kind of what's been going on in our group,
The
the
small
women.
group we've got,
Yeah.
yeah.
hmm And it's been I think that what God is, bringing us to in a sense in relationships
Mm-hmm.
are kind of doing away with, our worldly views of how we think relationships should be, and being vulnerable and authentic in our walk, to be honest, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's challenging,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we've hit this new, what I want to say. I don't want to say plateau because we're still going to keep climbing higher, right? But
And
um,
going deeper.
yeah,
It's more
yeah.
like we've hit a level of depth
Mm-hmm.
that we may not have experienced before, but we're definitely experiencing it with each other never
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But there's always more
Yeah.
to go.
And that's my hope for, listeners, and that and revived and restored and building community. Kind of, but the whole thing is about building community that's
Mm-hmm.
where we're really engaged in each other's
Mm-hmm.
lives, and and I think it misses out on so many families too, where we're really not engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we put up barriers and walls because we're afraid of being hurt. Um, just kind of our view. I wanted to bring up one of the conversations that we were just having earlier was, I've walked through being 60. I've walked through a lot of things with the Lord, and I remember when I was going through a new season of my life, and there were things that I felt like the Lord let me get away with, but then when He calls you higher, He'll like, man, you can't do that anymore. You
Yeah.
can't do that anymore. And um, and I remember driving in my van, and it's like, and here's the thing: is I was so afraid to talk to my husband about something.
Mm.
Well, like, because coming out of addictions and stuff, then I had an addiction to shopping,
Ah.
and uh, I would hide it from him, and then I would sometimes take it back,
It was just the shopping process that you
Yeah,
enjoyed.
and the Lord was showing me, like, how to get through that it was a spirit of addiction still
Mm.
there,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just transferring it to something else, right?
Mm.
And so, but I needed to talk to my husband more about it, and I was so afraid because he would get upset with me, and I'm like, "Oh, I don't wanna go through the whole drama thing again and get in an argument," and, sometimes so in the beginning of it, he was showing me what to do, and I was
Mm-hmm.
kinda keeping my hand. Now he's like, "Okay, now you have to go to a new step and trust me in this, in the relationship with your
Yeah.
husband."
Yeah.
And I was so angry, and I didn't wanna do it at first, and I'm like, "Okay, Lord." And I go, "Gosh, you're not letting me get away with nothing anymore." And,
Oh,
but
but that's a good thing
it's
because,
absolutely.
we can enjoy his presence
Mhm.
now
Mhm.
without that garbage. I mean,
Yep.
we will be having that in heaven totally,
Yeah,
but
no
how
kidding.
much better is it to start enjoying that process now of being
Mhm.
closer
And
and
I think that's what he's doing with our group too, is like,
yeah.
so, but in that process, and I did end up going to Dan, talking to him, um, through that, where it ended up being a really great,
Mm-hmm.
um, kind of a healing place for the two of us, and then
Mm-hmm.
also for us to have a more trusting relationship. It
Mm-hmm.
was it was actually the opposite of what I thought was going to happen.
And that,
And that's just like the
yeah,
Lord. And I knew I had to obey the Lord. I knew I had to. And He's holy, He's righteous. And
yeah,
so we might excuse some of our behaviors or excuse some of our things and think God's okay with it when He's really not, but He's
no,
given us grace to come to that new place of and just maturing in our walk with
yeah,
Him.
yeah.
But He's holy, He's right. There's nothing. It's like and He took me through the whole thing with the desert, that God, Jesus, when He was in the desert and Satan tempted Him. Every temptation that Jesus had, as followers of Jesus Christ, we will be tempted. I think of human beings, we're going to be tempted, and
Mm-hmm.
some of us, because we don't know Jesus, we don't walk through it.
Mm.
But we'll have to go around it again and again until we do walk through it. And it's
Mhm.
like, you've passed this test, right?
Mhm.
But it's like, it's just because he loves us so, it's like there's no darkness in God. There's none.
Mm.
And how do we get through to that is through Jesus. And
Mhm.
so I feel like in our relationships with the women now, we're coming to that. Like God's taken me, I think, with walking with women is to be raw and real and authentic, and then to ask hard questions that maybe are uncomfortable. And I don't like, I think I'm in that point, but I think that's the place where he's brought us to, where we've built trust with one another. We know each
Mhm.
other's hearts. And now we're going to be challenged in some belief systems, right? And it's okay. And I feel
Yeah.
like that's kind of where we're going to a whole new level. And I'm hoping, and I know, I believe that God is doing it because he wants right relationships with all of us,
Oh
right? And
yeah.
how we view
Yeah.
each other and how we view, and it's okay to have conflict.
Yeah.
It's okay to have conflict.
Yeah.
Conflict is not a bad thing,
Mm-mm.
especially
No.
if it helps us to shake off the things that
Mm-hmm.
aren't supposed to be there.
Yeah.
We wouldn't know that they were an issue if we didn't have that
Yeah.
conflict.
Right.
And it's okay to how do I say? Well, I'm thinking about I was kind of disappointed in a situation recently, probably with the delay or whatever. And because I used the word, I was disappointed, the person was taken on that I was disappointed in her.
Them.
And I'm not like,
Yeah.
and I figured out what was going on there because it got a little, I went, I'm not it's okay if I feel disappointed. That has nothing to do with you, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But she was taking that on like I was disappointed. And like, no, and so just getting that clarity. But sometimes we as women would just walk away
Oh yeah.
and not even have that like, what did you mean by that?
Yeah.
Or were you thinking, well, did I disappoint you? Like, instead of,
Well, and
yeah.
even the belief system that
Mhm.
people aren't for us.
Yes.
You know, they're
Yep.
against us.
Yep.
And we have to let
Mhm.
down those walls,
Yeah.
open our hearts.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Mhm.
But that's
Yeah,
what
can
we've
we-
been doing. This chapter has been.
Oh, this chapter's been like intense.
Yes.
It's like,
Yeah, so intense. But it's
Mhm.
interesting too, timing wise, that we seem to be there's kind of like this little leap forward too in a
Mhm.
lot of things that we're cooking.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, we're moving forward on some stuff. We've just this has been like kind of a personal journey for everybody, but collectively we've kind of been brainstorming and talking about things, and we've made creative things together, and we always do these exercises and stuff when we're together. But now it's like, okay, well, how do we get this out to the world? And this has been marinating a long time, right?
Yes.
And so now there's just been some forward motion with all of that kind of coming up, and no doubt with it will come further opportunities for healing.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Because you get to, I mean, if you're doing something collaboratively, it is such a different experience.
Mhm.
Because when you're running the show,
You could-
it feels really different. Yeah, you get to do it
Totally.
exactly your way. You get to have your opinions on all the things. As a perfectionist type of person, or a recovering perfectionist, you're
A
like,
little bit
yeah,
of narcissism
yeah,
comes in.
you're like,
Yeah.
I would just really like all that to just be exactly the way that I want. And so that's not always going to happen, because that may not honor other people. And so figuring out how to navigate, like what probably we're all sort of feeling is going to be like a widespread, large project. This is a God kind of thing. It's not going to be a Valencia thing or a Cynthia thing
right.
or a Kim thing, right?
Mhm.
It's we're doing this together. It's a God vision. It's a shared vision. There are definitely challenges that go with all of that, but it's also really, really exciting.
Mhm.
So, it's been interesting just to see how this is going to play out, because we've had all this personal growth happening with reawakening our creativity. And then it's like, inevitably, right, as you move forward, you're going to do something with that creativity.
Mhm.
And we've started to kind of trickle out some things, right? We've got our calendars I don't know if you want to talk a little
Yeah, we
bit
should probably
about
share
that.
that. Yeah.
Mhm.
We'll have to show that. No, I think that, yeah, we just finished the calendars for 2025 and they've been printed. They're ready to be put out on the market. We're going to put them in an antique mall and then on Facebook for sales and stuff. They're just really
They're
turned out beautiful.
They
Yeah.
really did.
Mhm.
And that's an example of each of us having a piece to
Mhm.
make the whole.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't have been a whole without each of us.
Yeah.
That's right. That's
you know?
right. And it's amazing that there's 12, right? And there's
Yeah,
12 months and we
yeah.
each took our month. There was nobody. It was so beautiful how it all came about because everyone's
Mhm.
like, well, I
need this month.
I want this month. But it was like,
I don't think there was overlap.
there
Like,
was never
nobody-
any overlap. I said, no, I really wanted that month.
Yeah.
Nobody, it was like so beautiful
Mhm.
Mhm.
that everyone kind of knew what they were going to do. And I waited to the end because I'm like, I'll take whatever's left. And it happened to be January, which is my birthday month.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it was like, what? So
Yeah.
anyway,
And then the beauty of the
Mhm.
stories,
yeah.
the scriptures that influence the artists, the creativity pieces, and then the stories of what the Lord was showing us each
Mhm.
individually,
Right.
and yet how that you've seen
Yeah.
it being a prophetic for each month of
Yes.
next
Yes.
year.
Oh, I truly believe that. As I read through them and as you looked and and Jennifer who's helping us and got them printed in it, when she was reading through them, they were just impacting her.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
She thought they were like and what a word for her even now, but it's like, yeah, they're and as I read through, I said that each month it's going to be amazing to see what happens in those months
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
those words that were written down
Mhm.
and put in the
Yeah.
hearts of his people. And it's collaborative. It's like all of us together.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
he didn't create us to be alone. He didn't create us to
Mhm.
not be
Mhm.
in this intimate relationship with one another.
Right.
Like a beautiful
I never
Mhm.
thought that moving to Texas would bring me this. So I really appreciate it. And just, the Lord knows what we all need.
Yeah.
Being willing to say yes to Him
Hmm.
and let that process flower, unfold.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
been,
It's so beautiful.
it's good.
And I hope that, and our, for you all listening, our hope is that these will be like little fire igniters that this will
Mhm.
ignite fire within all of our communities and spread out all over the world. I mean, to
Mhm.
have women meeting together to really seek his heart and to grow and learn and to heal and to, let the kingdom of God come on this earth as it is in heaven. Like
Yeah.
it's going to come through us. It's so
Mhm.
beautiful. And I'm excited even just after just sharing even last night and then seeing it all come together there and feeling like where we're going to take it even into the new year. It's just profound to me. I'm just in
Yeah.
awe of the Lord for his goodness and to have that. I never thought I would have the relationships that I have with y'all,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
Yeah.
to the depth that
Who
it is.
is these stranger ladies
Yeah.
that are coming in my house?
Yeah. But it's been beautiful.
Yeah, it's really interesting too to be and I know that you and I have spoken about this, Cynthia, is that like we've seen this in various iterations, right? And there's been healing in
Mhm.
all of those seasons. But right now we've kind of everybody has come to a place where I think we're just ready for like the
Mhm.
next level, like what you're saying. And so there's been a willingness to get in the trenches, right?
Mhm.
And dig in and sit as long as it took. And not a complacent or lazy kind of way, but like
Right.
in a okay, like I need to really hear this. I don't want to just like check a box. I want to actually hear from God. That takes time. Kim and I were saying, talking about like just doing the reading. It's like, okay, well, maybe you have 10 pages of reading this week, but it's like, no, sometimes it's like 2 of those pages I could sit there all day because
Mhm.
there's just so
Or even
much.
one paragraph.
Uh-huh. Like you need to get it in you. Like you need to get it in you because there's a lot of questions that you have to ask yourself too.
Yeah.
And
Not just
so
glossing over it and
Mm-mm.
exactly.
okay, I got through that one.
And it's not this type of reading, it's this type
It's
of
the heart
Right.
reading.
heart reading.
She's saying
Yeah.
the mind, like it's not the mind reading, it's the
Yeah.
heart reading.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it requires something different of you.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what it is right now, is that this requires, and I think as we step into moving this out, like rolling this out to the world, sort of, that's kind of what's starting to happen, right? And I think you've shared before in previous shows that your vision, like you feel like God's really put it on your heart that like this is healing for everybody, and you've done it several times with people here locally, and that, you know, God wants that to be, you know, global, really. Yeah, multiplied, exactly. And so as this happens, I just think, yeah, there's new challenges, there's new levels of growth, there's new levels for all of us, and I think we're just all learning.
And the thing that I've realized with the women that we're walking with, and we're all different stages of life, right? So there's that diversity, right? And yet the willingness to stay in it, even when it gets uncomfortable. And I think that's why we've been able to, I think that's why we've hit this new place. Sorry. Is because we've all said yes. Even though I feel uncomfortable, I'm going to move forward. And I'm going to be vulnerable enough to say, I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I have an issue with this, or I have, you know, or whatever it is. I mean, we've had some pretty intense conversations, you know?
Yeah.
And, but it's always life comes out of it. And then you hear and you get a different perspective of some things too. With, wow, yeah. And I think that's what's been missing in the discipleship when you disciple others, or even in the church, is where we really, you know, I went to church for 14 years and I love the people there, but it's like, there was really never a real depth.
It takes time.
Yeah.
It takes communication. It takes that openness.
And intention, you know, being intentional.
Intentionality, yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
So this book has been a very good tool.
Shout out to Jenny. And I know I say her name wrong because I don't, Schut. Shoot. I don't know how I know it says that. Jenny, I'm so sorry. But I just love her because of this book. You know, that God, you know, destined her for that time. I know she helps so many people too, and she does different workshops too. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
When I think it's like imperative work.
Yeah.
Right. Like she, and you guys should go check out flyforward.org too.
Oh yeah.
And everybody out listening.
Yeah. Everybody listening.
Go check
please
that
go
out.
check it out. It's called
And
flyforward.com.
I think she has a little, .org.
Sorry.
Flyforward.org. And she has a little film that talks a little bit about her writing the book and just how it all came to be, and some other resources and stuff. There's lots of things on there, but it was interesting to hear her. I mean, obviously I've read the book, but to hear her just explaining how she got to where she was, I felt like very kindred with everything she was saying. She was saying like she just felt really disconnected from herself.
Yeah.
And she's a mom to 4 kiddos, and she said, and there's a place in the book where she talks about that the smiles on their faces or the laughter, she's kind of was disappearing behind loads of laundry and things like that. But that's what happens with life, unfortunately it does happen. And I think, for me, that's been like a challenge to try to stay anchored in a space with the Lord and just prioritize him. I mean, it's like, why would you not want to sit with him? I mean, you do want to, you just keep feeling compelled to get dragged back into whatever thing is there, waiting for you, because those things have to happen. Dinner has to be made. Kim and I were saying before we went on air, dinner has to be made, dishes have to get done, laundry has to be done. And I feel like you've expressed that like you don't remember feeling that way necessarily, but people do, like you hear it constantly.
And today, I mean, I think every season, I think every generation has the warfare and the attack the enemy brings to get us to be weighed down.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
every season there's something that's being weighed down. I, you know,
Well, I think now it's like, there's so much knowledge of what is happening, like Pinterest and all the things. There's a lot of like pressure and knowledge about what you could do,
Mhm.
all the options about what you could do. There's like pretty high standards for everything.
Mm.
And that probably was the case somewhere. It's just we're just so in the know about everything now. You hear all the things, like you feel like you're probably dropping the ball constantly. I grew up as a latchkey kid, so my mom worked all the time, and parents were not around, and there were challenges that went with that for
Mhm.
them as mothers. But it just looks really different. And kids are different. Life is different. The world is
It's yeah.
different. And so everybody's experience is different.
I think, and the main attack is attack against family
Mhm.
and
Now it
relationships.
is, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's just huge. All that is to say,
yeah.
I think it's just huge that this exists and these communities can exist
Yes.
and
Mhm.
doing this hard
Yes.
work can exist, because it's like those kids are gifted to you because you have something to share. And if all you share is like drudgery and housework, like that's a disservice to them, and it's a disservice to you. And
Mm.
and so it's amazing to me to think about what that could unlock think about what that would do
Mm.
if a whole bunch of moms alone, just even that, right?
Mhm.
Not to mention the grandmothers and the women out there, whoever it is, that changes everything. That does build communities, because that's like the core of what's shaping the next generation too, right? I mean,
Mm.
that's
When I
pivotal.
think one of the attacks too is when you get all same age groups together
Mhm.
and
You don't
they-
see the different.
you'll never get deep, because then everybody will start agreeing with it.
Mhm.
It's kind of a different dynamic when you
Dynamic,
have
yeah.
different generations together.
Mhm.
Because it brings a lot of more it's real life. I mean, to me,
Mhm.
God created us to be family.
Right.
Mhm.
I even have a difficult time going to churches that have the children separated in age group, because that never was from the long time ago. It came in through, I believe, the systems of this world
Mhm.
because real life happens when there's all generations together. And and that's something that I will continue to press in and be gracious about. But it's like I still work at the children's church, and and I'm praying for this divine revelation and how much it's needed for us to be together with generations. And because it's the family structure, God created it that way, and that's how we thrive.
Mhm.
When we really look at the bigger picture of it, when we're really thriving is when we're really in
The pattern
with
that
the
he
generations.
created.
Mhm. The way that he designed it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we could do a whole
I know.
we could do it the whole thing just on that. We could. Because there's just I
There'll be
mean,
time for
the
that.
world
Yeah.
is broken, right?
Yeah.
And so things get off kilter and there's fallout from that. And
Mhm.
so, I think there's just a lot of hats to be worn. And I feel like women feel that in a different way.
Oh,
Men feel it. They
Mhm.
do.
Yeah.
They've got their pressures. I understand and respect that. But it's different. There is more variation in a woman's day, and there's more things to disparate, like like really different things that are going on all the time, because you have all these people with needs that you're trying to help, and all the things, the little things that to manage. It's all over the
Especially when
place.
the kids are at home
Mhm.
and young.
Yeah. So, it just looks really, really different. And I think it is valuable. It's valuable to me to have all you ladies to be able to speak into my life and to talk to me about all that.
So I remember a story about a woman's life is like a pie,
Mhm.
and we tend to give away all those pieces and never have a piece for ourselves. And I think this is what we're bringing back into play is, who am I in this pie of what's happening in my life? And how do I keep it alive and whole and sharing with each other
Yeah.
and being together improves the flavor of our pie.
That's good.
Agreed.
It kind of when you were saying that too, is reminding me of how, the Lord wants to give out of our overflow.
Yeah.
So there's time, like that's why it's so important to spend time with Him.
Mm-hmm. It is.
And then it's out of that time with Him where you're really hearing Him, listening, where there's contemplative prayer going on, when there's conversation with the Lord, and you're really hearing and it's engaging in a way that's shaping who you are, right? That then you're able to give out of that. It's an overflow.
Mhm.
And I think that's kind of a lot that's missing too. And I think that's where the Lord's directing us as a group.
Mhm.
I think every one of us in this group are called. I think that season will come when we'll, like we said, we're going to go out 2 by 2 and start our own group, but we'll still come together and we're eternal. Like that's the beauty of it. This is for eternity.
Yeah.
What we're building is for eternity. It's so beautiful. And the relationships we know will continue on. They won't, they're not going away. They'll be here for eternity. It's just beautiful. And anyway, I just want to thank you all for listening and being here. Thank you all for this conversation. And we're just going to keep going more and just get involved in your communities and reach out to us. And I think at the end of this, you'll hear where you can send out an email or just reach out. And we'd love to help get things started there wherever you're at.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe come be a part of what we're doing. But any last words you can say about?
I just think, if people need help starting a group or they're feeling, led to do something like that, I hope that they'll reach out because I think that's where this is going. I think it will spread healing, and that's what we need.
It's powerful.
Amen.